for the forthcoming by-election. Marlene is well known in our community, but for those who do not know her, Marlene is a married woman with 4 children. She's 37 years of age. She's a graduate in History of Art and Architecture from Manchester University. She's currently doing a postgraduate diploma in journalism with the London School of Journalism. And her husband, who's here sitting at the back in this press conference, is Marlene Nahon, who's also a lawyer. I personally know Marlene for many, many years. She's no stranger to political debate and has never been afraid of expressing her views publicly or otherwise. We believe that she brings a constructive and fresh perspective to politics. She certainly brings enthusiasm and commitment. She is passionate about Gibraltar and our people, and we believe that she will add diversity to our parliament, not only as a woman, as a mother, as a person of the Jewish faith, and not just as a lawyer, but also, in fact, as an independent thinker. And in relation to that, I want to just say this, that a number of weeks ago, when the GSD had met and we considered for the first time whether we were going to be presenting a candidate at this by-election, and the consensus at that stage by the majority of the executive was that in principle we were thinking not doing so. When that news got to Marlene, she was phoning me up almost on a daily basis after that, telling me what a bad mistake that was from the party, that the party owed a democratic duty to the people of Gibraltar and to Gibraltar to present a candidate, and telling me very clearly that if the party didn't present a candidate, that she would present herself, or she would think about presenting herself as an independent, so that the values, her values, and our values were represented in that by-election. Of course, it's not about agenda, but it's also about ability and determination. And Marlene, in my view, and in our view as a party and as an executive, has those qualities in abundance. Marlene also has very deep roots in our community. Her family have lived here in Gibraltar for generations. Her father, Sir Joshua Hassan, is the longest serving Chief Minister of Gibraltar. He spent his entire life in public service and advancing the rights of the people of Gibraltar over 50 years at the helm of this community. Marlene wants to make her own mark in politics and stand on her own 2 feet. And I, for one, know that she will make her father, Sir Joshua, very proud indeed. I am absolutely thrilled that Marlene is the GSD candidate for the forthcoming by-election. I, the executive, and the party as a whole have every confidence in her, and we ask the people of Gibraltar to in turn deposit their trust in her and the GSD. It won't be misplaced, I promise. Now I'd like Damon Bocino, who is going to be our campaign manager at this by-election, to say a few words. Damon, would you like to?
Thank you, Danny. First of all, I'd like to formally welcome Marlene Hassan Nahon as the candidate for the Gibraltar Social Democrats at this upcoming by-election. I have known Marlene pretty much for all of my life, and I welcome her to this campaign. I have been tasked with forming part of the campaign team with the leader and the steering committee, the election agent, of course, and the candidate to run this campaign for the GSD. But I would like to dwell for a second on the historical significance of this juncture in our history, and it is this, that this is the first time that we will have Hassan standing for, with all due respect to Michael, standing for election since 1984. And I hope that if we are able to win people's hearts and minds and convince them to vote for us, that this will be the by-election which will bring the daughter of the man who ceased to be a member of our parliament in 1988 after many years serving as its chief minister and latterly as its backbencher. It also, if we win, will bring another mother to Parliament, not only a woman, but a mother, which will no doubt to bring a different perspective to politics. So there is a criticism out there that there are too many barristers in the House, a criticism which is levelled against us by Isabel on many occasions, privately of course, but now publicly, and no doubt Marlene will be able to bring that different perspective into Gibraltar parliamentary life and politics at the, I mean, she's been a participant in politics in social media, but I think she will be able to do so in a sort of a front-line basis when she hasn't hitherto been able to do before, and I very much look forward to being no doubt at the receiving end of her contributions. It is our job now as Gibraltar politicians to conduct, I think, a clean campaign, debate the issues, and not dwell on personal attacks or personal matters. And what this party will no doubt seek to do is to persuade the electorate of our respective cases and fill that empty chair which was left sadly by the death of Charles Bosson, whom I would just like to say for the record we're all very fond of. But that is a democracy. We are now presenting our values, our ideas, and the way that we think things ought to be happening in Gibraltar. As for my party and the candidates it is fielding, what I can say is that we do have the confidence that despite the very short period of time since the last general election, it was only in December of 2011, we have a very strong and persuasive argument to put to the electorate. And I can just dwell on three very broad issues. I won't go into the details of it in terms of the matters of principle. In large measure, much of what was promised in 2011 in terms of the New Dawn has failed to materialize. Secondly, we are already seeing that there were very serious cracks appearing in matters affecting good governance. And it is, in many respects, a hallmark of the GSLP administration, which was booted out of office in 1996. And it is, the third point I'd like to make, absolutely impossible to escape the inherent contradiction of the GSLP alliance arguments in relation to public finances, both immediately, pre the election and immediately post the election. People will recall the Chief Minister's message, a very solemn message in January 2012 in relation to public finances. And there is an inherent contradiction with that position and the spending spree which we're all seeing displaying before our very eyes as a community. And I think people have come to realize that they were duped and they were lied to at the last general election.
Absolutely.
For these reasons, we will encourage the electorate to vote, obviously, our party colours, the GSD, on the 4th of July. This is their opportunity to have their say. We haven't had an opinion poll since December 2011, very interestingly, but this will be a real poll. And although not a general election, and there was therefore very little chance, although I suppose technically there could be, if we had somebody crossing the floor to our side, of changing the government on the 4th of July, the result of the ballot box on that day will be a very powerful one. And therefore I wish to encourage everybody, the entire electorate, to follow the debates, engage with the campaign, and participate and vote on the 4th of July.
Elliot, would you like to say something else, please?
First of all, Marlene,
Elliot is the electoral agent, by the way.
First of all, welcome. It's my privilege to be your election candidate, election agent. What I would say, first of all, is that Marlene brings absolutely and unquestionably a fresh dynamic to the GSD. I think what she offers as a potential candidate is someone who is, as Danny said, an independent thinker, someone who has made a contribution to Gibraltar politics, and someone who is willing to step up to the plate and make a positive contribution to politics. That is important. Not many people are willing to take the opportunity of doing that, and I fully support Marlene. I'm 100% behind her, and that is why I offered myself to be her election agent. What I would say is that I've spoken to Marlene recently, and our thoughts are aligned. Marlene, as well as I do, believe that we need to create a fairer society, that we believe in hard-working people, hard-working families, and those are the people in our society that need to be supported. That is why I say that Marlene will make a meaningful contribution to the party. And one message that I would like to get across, and that whoever anyone supports in this election, whether it be Marlene, the GSLP candidate, an independent, please come out to vote. It is your democratic responsibility, it is your democratic right to vote. And I would urge everyone, whatever their political colours, whether they're a floating voter, whether they're a block voter, come out and vote on the 4th of July.
May I just add in relation to Elliot, because he makes a very important point. It's a point that we've been trying to emphasise as a party. I mean, since I became leader about 3 or 4 months ago, which is that this party needs to be a bulkhead. It needs to be an effective opposing force to what I've described as the Amina Pertenece culture that has crept into Gibraltar society, that is not in the best interest of this community, that has unfortunately been fueled by undeliverable promises and expectations made at election time, and that in fact has been carried through into some of the things that we're seeing as well by-election. You know, it may not be a popular message amongst many sectors out there, because in Gibraltar, unfortunately, we often fail to see just how lucky we are, what it is that we have, how lucky we are as a community, how far we've come. But it's an important message. It's an important message that we need to be bringing out and taking to people for the sake of this community. And I think that's something that we're also going to be doing at this by-election. It's not only the question of looking at our 6 core messages. Damon has outlined some of those, and we're going to be tomorrow. We're going to be down Main Street with distributing leaflets that sets out the other 3, and indeed we've outlined in the communiques last week. But it's also about being positive, and it's about a positive message that may not be an upside to it in terms of buying people's votes, because you know it's not about that. But it's about saying to people, look, let's be more responsible. So politics of responsibility is what I've called it, and I think that's a good description of it. And therefore, without further delay, I'd like to invite our candidate, and it's all about her, to say a few words. Marlene, please.
Thank you, Danny. Thank you, Damon. And thank you, Elliot, for your kind words and your warm welcome. First and foremost, I wish to convey my deep condolences to the family of the late Charles Busson MP, a good man with integrity and steadfast principles. After very serious consideration, I decided to put my name forward as a GSD candidate for this by-election. I do so out of love and deep concern for our community. I have no agenda other than to make a positive contribution to Gibraltar. I also believe our Parliament is in need of diversity, with the inclusion of something other than the overwhelming number of lawyers representing parties on both sides. Although I considered running as an independent candidate, it is no secret that my political views have always been close to the GSD. The GSD was born out of the demise of the AACR, and my father endorsed it as the philosophical flag bearers of his core beliefs. When the GSD were considering not fielding a candidate at this by-election, I fundamentally disagreed with that point of view, because I believe the people of Gibraltar deserved a real democratic choice at the polls, especially because the government is not at risk in this by-election. The message that we had in those circumstances, as an independent thinker, and in order to ensure that the values that are most important to me were being represented, I considered running as an independent candidate. I was therefore delighted that last week the Executive Committee of the GSD overwhelmingly voted in favour of contesting this by-election, and I was honoured to be asked to consider putting my name forward to be the GSD candidate. Like most Gibraltarians, at the end of 2011, I expected to see how a new administration would make changes after an incumbency of 16 years. However, 18 months into this new government, I find myself disillusioned and concerned for the future direction of this community. The GSLP Liberals promised a new dawn and change, and quite frankly, they have failed to deliver either. We are dealing with a government that promised all things to all men in order to get elected. One that, as well as giving false expectations to our youth, is showing a complete lack of judgment diplomatically in the handling of the fishing crisis, and one that is justifying its inactions or erroneous decisions by passing the buck to the previous administration. This is not what people voted for. I am a wife and mother of 4. I care about how your children and my children will grow up and what the future will hold for them all. We were told in 2011 that Gibraltar was bankrupt and on the brink of collapse. The then aspiring government was spreading the message that we had little left in the kitty, that our public debt was too high, and that our public finances were in a ruinous state. If they believed their own rhetoric, how can they stand today announcing huge capital projects and continuing to promise everything to everyone? Did they mislead us then, or are they misleading us now? I am bipartisan and collegiate by nature, and I would like to promote an atmosphere of cooperation in Parliament. If the government changes its course and begins to make decisions that are right for the future of Gibraltar, I will be the first one to stand up and acknowledge this. I am proud to be the GSD candidate at this by-election, and I am touched by the party's belief that I can add value to opposition. I thank everyone in the GSD for their support, and I feel encouraged by their words as well as the wider public's good wishes. I urge people to exercise their democratic right to vote in this by-election and vote for me, someone who will listen to your concerns, will represent your needs honestly, and will always talk straight. Thank you.
Well done.